There's a huge difference in energy internationally in 50 Cent and JayZ. In fact, his largest selling record sold 430-something thousand copies. My largest selling records sold 5 million. And let them be fooled in America.
50 Cent just said something that could change everything we thought we knew about JayZ. Not the billionaire businessman image, not the Grammy-collecting mogul married to Beyonce. Something way deeper than that. Something that allegedly connects Jay to a pattern of behavior that's been hiding in plain sight for over 2 decades. And if what 50 sang is true, we've all been watching the wrong story this entire time. For years, people wondered why 50 Cent kept going at JayZ. It seemed personal, petty even. But recently, 50 Cent started connecting dots that make his decades-long campaign against Jay look less like jealousy and more like a warning nobody wanted to hear. He's not just talking about rap beef anymore. He's talking about power, control, and the kind of secrets that could unravel an entire empire. Let's go back to where this really started, because the surface story and the real story are 2 completely different things. Most people think the beef between 50 Cent and JayZ started with How to Rob in 1999. That track where 50 joked about robbing every major rapper in the game, including Jay. But that wasn't the beginning. That was 50 sending up a warning flare. He saw something in Jay back then that other people either missed or chose to ignore. In interviews from that era, 50 talked about how JayZ operated differently than other rappers. It wasn't about the music for Jay. It was about positioning, about controlling narratives, about making sure nobody could challenge his throne, not through better bars, but through better chess moves behind the scenes.
And I remember one time walking in the studio, Bleak Beans, everybody was in there, and I was like, man, I'm telling you, man, y'all got a chance right now, just flood it, put out a lot of music, because 50 Cent is coming.
When 50 dropped How to Rob, JayZ responded on a track, but here's what's interesting. Jay didn't just defend himself. He made it clear that 50 was nobody, that he didn't have the power or connections to matter. And 50 remembers that. Because to him, that response revealed everything. Jay wasn't concerned about lyrics. He was concerned about hierarchy. The disrespect wasn't just in the bars, it was in the dismissal. Jay treated 50 like he wasn't even worth a real battle. And that stuck with 50 for years. Not because his ego was hurt, but because he recognized the game being played. Jay was telling the entire industry that 50 didn't matter, hoping that narrative would stick before 50 could prove otherwise. Fast forward to the early 2000s when 50 was about to drop Get Rich or Die Tryin', the album that would change hip-hop forever. According to multiple industry insiders, JayZ allegedly tried to flood the market right before 50's release. New projects, surprise drops, anything to steal momentum. It didn't work. 50's album sold over 800,000 copies in its first week and became one of the best-selling hip-hop albums of all time. But that move told 50 everything he needed to know. Jay wasn't trying to compete musically. He was trying to eliminate competition before it could breathe. And when that failed, Jay allegedly shifted tactics, trying to block 50 from certain venues, certain collaborations, certain opportunities. The kind of moves you can't prove on paper, but everyone in the industry knows are happening. Here's where things get darker.
If you look at his career,
This guy.
wow.
You're gonna let him say that?
Jay was
getting Grammy.
He had one.
Exactly.
He had
And
one.
he ain't show up.
No, he has like 20 now.
Hold on.
He had like 18 since he's been down. Look, he had one, bro. Hard Knock Life.
50 Cent has repeatedly pointed out what happened to artists signed under JayZ's Roc-A-Fella records. And when you line up the timeline, a pattern emerges that's hard to ignore. Take Beanie Sigel, one of the most loyal soldiers JayZ ever had. Beanie carried the Roc-A-Fella chain with pride, put in work on multiple albums, and was supposed to be next up. His debut, The Truth, dropped in 2000, and did well, but when it was time for Beanie to really blow up, something strange kept happening. JayZ would drop his own albums at the exact same time or just weeks before Beanie's projects. The Blueprint dropped just a month before Beanie's second album. When Beanie was supposed to get major promotion, Jay was suddenly everywhere, doing interviews, performing, taking up all the oxygen in the room. Beanie talked about this publicly years later, saying he felt sabotaged by his own label. The man he looked up to as a mentor was blocking his shine to protect his own position. And this wasn't just Beanie's experience. Other Roc-A-Fella artists have hinted at similar treatment. Memphis Bleek, Freeway, even Kanye West before he became too big to suppress. Memphis Bleek released multiple albums under Roc-A-Fella and never achieved the solo success people expected. Some blamed his skills, but others pointed out that he was never given the same promotional push Jay gave himself. Freeway's Philadelphia Freeway was critically acclaimed but seemed to disappear from the conversation almost immediately after release. 50 Cent watched all of this happen in real time, and he's been saying the same thing for years. JayZ doesn't build artists up. He uses them as props until they become threats. Then he quietly makes sure they stay in their place. The beef between JayZ and Nas is legendary in hip-hop. Ether versus Takeover, two of the greatest diss tracks ever made. But 50 Cent says we've been looking at that battle all wrong. According to 50 and several people who were in the industry at that time, Jay didn't just battle Nas on wax. He allegedly used his industry connections to make Nas's life harder.
And, 4 months later in the club hit and it was over. And It was just like, okay, now everybody got to sit on the sidelines and wait this tidal wave out.
Radio play became scarce for Nas in certain markets. Distribution deals got complicated. Features that were lined up mysteriously fell through. Jay had the machine behind him. Def Jam, Roc-A-Fella, all the corporate backing, and reportedly he used every bit of that leverage to make sure Nas couldn't win, even if his music was better. It wasn't about who had the better bars, it was about who could choke the other one out using power and connections. Nas has talked about how difficult that period was for him professionally. His label situation was a mess. His albums weren't getting the distribution they deserved. And while some of that was just bad business deals, people close to the situation have suggested that Jay's influence made things worse behind the scenes. 50 saw this and realized something crucial. JayZ's real weapon wasn't his mic skills. It was his ability to control the infrastructure around you until you had no options left. Win the rap battle, lose the war. That's how Jay operated, according to 50 Cent. This is where 50's accusations get really specific. The 2022 Super Bowl halftime show was supposed to be a celebration of West Coast hip-hop, Dr. Dre's moment to showcase the culture. But JayZ was involved as a producer through his partnership with the NFL. 50 claims he was deliberately left off that stage. Not because he didn't fit the theme, he's one of the biggest rap artists of the 2000s and had hits with Dr. Dre and Eminem, but because JayZ didn't want him there. According to 50, Eminem had to threaten to pull out of the performance entirely if 50 Cent wasn't included. Only then did 50 get the call. He performed in the club for less than a minute. One of the biggest rap songs of all time reduced to a 45-second cameo. When 50 talked about this publicly, he didn't just call it petty, he called it strategic. JayZ, in his view, was trying to write 50 out of hip-hop history, not through better music, but by controlling which platforms he could access. The Super Bowl, the biggest stage in entertainment, almost became another example of Jay's gatekeeping.
Oh, wow.
You were connected to the biggest.
Jay got it for the music. Jay got it for the
Oh,
music.
no, I'm saying shit you didn't see.
Nah, he deserved those.
I'm sitting there, it's like this, like Black excellence. They're sitting there like, yeah.
And if Eminem hadn't intervened, it would have worked. 50 would have been the only major artist from that era completely excluded from one of the most important hip-hop moments in mainstream history. That's not an accident. That's intentional erasure. The fact that it took another artist threatening to walk away just to get 50 Cent included tells you everything about how much influence Jay had over that decision. And it proved 50's point. Jay doesn't want equals, he wants control. 50 Cent has said something about JayZ's marriage to Beyoncé that most people find uncomfortable to hear. He suggested that the marriage was never primarily about love. It was about optics, legacy, and power consolidation. Look at the timeline. JayZ married Beyoncé in 2008, and his public image transformed almost overnight. Before that, he was the former drug dealer turned rapper with a reputation for being ruthless. After the marriage, he became part of American royalty. The Grammys started rolling in, not just for music, but for things adjacent to music. Influence, cultural impact, the kind of awards that signal you're untouchable. 50 Cent has pointed out that Jay won his first Grammy in 1999, but didn't start accumulating them rapidly until after he married Beyoncé. Since then, he's won 24 Grammys. His children have Grammys and they're barely old enough to have careers. Blue Ivy won a Grammy at 9 years old. 50's argument is that the marriage gave Jay access to a different level of industry protection. Beyoncé's fan base, her cultural weight, her family-friendly image, all of it became armor for Jay. Criticize him and you're criticizing Beyoncé. Go after him and you're going after the Beehive. It's the ultimate shield. Whether or not you believe the marriage is purely strategic, it's undeniable that JayZ's trajectory changed dramatically after 2008. He went from being a rapper who did business to being a businessman who used to rap. His brand became untouchable in ways it never was before. And 50 thinks that's not a coincidence. He thinks Jay saw Beyonce as the final piece of a puzzle that would make him bulletproof in the industry and in public perception.
Wait a minute.
So you're saying the success is derived from the marriage?
I've absolutely been treated differently.
The accolades.
Because he's no
marriage.
longer viewed as what, like a street or gangster rapper. Now he's viewed as a businessman, entrepreneur, family man.
And the biggest ones, because of the position Beyonce's in.
Now here's one of the most disturbing allegations that's resurfaced. And it's not just 50 Cent talking about it anymore. Jaguar Wright, an artist who worked adjacent to Jay's circle, has been vocal about how Rihanna's signing to Def Jam went down. According to multiple accounts, Rihanna was 16 years old when she flew from Barbados to New York to audition for JayZ, who was president of Def Jam at the time. The meeting reportedly happened at 3 a.m. in his office. No parents, no manager, just a teenage girl and a powerful executive. Rihanna herself has told parts of this story in interviews, describing how nervous she was and how Jay told her she wasn't leaving the office without signing a deal. Some people heard that story as a fairy tale, a young artist getting her big break. But others, including 50 Cent and Jaguar Wright, hear something much darker. Why 3 a.m.? Why alone? Why the urgency to sign that night? These are questions that don't have good answers. And when you consider Jay's alleged history with younger women in the industry, the story takes on a different tone. Rihanna became one of the biggest stars in the world, but the circumstances of how that deal happened have never sat right with people who know how the industry actually works. Normal business doesn't happen at 3 a.m. with teenagers alone in offices. That's not standard procedure. That's something else entirely. And 50 has made it clear he thinks there's more to that story than anyone's willing to say publicly. He's hinted that Rihanna's rapid rise and close relationship with Jay in those early years wasn't just about her talent. It was about what happened in those private meetings that nobody else was in the room for. Recently, 50 Cent started connecting JayZ and Diddy in ways that go beyond just being successful rappers from the same era. He's suggesting they operated as a unit, two sides of the same power structure. Diddy was loud, chaotic, throwing massive parties and staying in the headlines. Jay was quiet, calculated, moving behind boardroom doors. But according to 50 Cent, they were both playing the same game. Control the culture, control the artists, and eliminate anyone who threatens the throne. With all the allegations currently swirling around Diddy, people are starting to ask questions about everyone in his inner circle. And JayZ was very much in that circle for decades. They vacationed together, did business together, appeared at each other's events constantly. There are photos of them together at parties, on yachts, at private gatherings that the public rarely got to see. 50's point is simple. If Diddy was doing what people are accusing him of, and Jay was that close to him for that long, what did Jay know? And when did he know it? You don't spend 20 years in someone's inner circle without seeing who they really are.
Look, when Jay signed his contract, the big one was with Beyonce.
Mm-hmm.
When he signed that contract, the marriage contract, he got trophies. Now those fucking trophies, those fucking trophies came rolling in, buddy. He started getting Grammys left and right, man. I mean, look, listen, if you look at his career.
It's a question that's becoming harder to ignore as more information comes out. The idea that Jay was somehow completely unaware of Diddy's alleged behavior while being one of his closest friends in the industry doesn't add up. Either he knew and said nothing, or he was willfully ignorant. Neither option looks good. So why has 50 Cent spent 2 decades going after JayZ? It would be easy to write it off as jealousy or bitterness, but 50 Cent's career doesn't suggest that. He built a legitimate empire. Music, television, film, business deals with major corporations. He didn't need to ride JayZ's name for relevance. 50 keeps talking because he believes something about JayZ is fundamentally wrong, and he thinks the culture has been too afraid to confront it. Everyone in the industry knows Jay's reputation for retaliation. Get on his bad side and doors close. Radio stations stop playing your music. Streaming playlists mysteriously exclude you. Features dry up, investment opportunities vanish. It's not paranoia if it's real, and multiple artists have hinted at experiencing exactly this kind of blackballing after conflicts with Jay. Dame Dash, Jay's former business partner, has talked extensively about how Jay allegedly cut him out of everything they built together and made sure he couldn't get deals in the industry afterward. 50 Cent doesn't have that fear because he's not dependent on the traditional industry infrastructure. He owns his masters, produces his own content, and has relationships outside of music that make him untouchable. JayZ can't hurt him the way he's allegedly hurt others. That freedom is exactly why 50 can say things that other artists can only whisper about in private. So 50 keeps talking, not because he wants attention, but because he's one of the few people who can say these things out loud without losing everything. He's protected by his own success and independence in ways that most artists aren't. What 50 Cent is really exposing isn't just JayZ's individual actions. It's how power works in the music industry when you have enough of it. Jay controls Roc Nation, one of the most powerful management companies in entertainment. He has partnerships with the NFL, streaming platforms, major corporations. He sits on boards, he's in rooms where decisions get made about who becomes famous and who gets forgotten. That kind of power means you don't need to be the best artist anymore. You just need to make sure no one can compete with you on an even playing field. You control the gates, the platforms, the opportunities, and if someone threatens your position, you have 100 different ways to make their life difficult without ever being directly connected to it.
It's the billionaire brunch. You're like,
I hate you, man.
unaware of anything going on here. This is the one time I'm gonna be with you niggas this year. Yeah.
50's accusations paint a picture of someone who spent 25 years systematically removing competition, controlling narratives, and building an empire on the backs of artists who thought they were being mentored, but were actually being used. It's not about music anymore. It's about maintaining power at all costs. Is all of it true? That's hard to say definitively, but the pattern is consistent. The stories from different artists in different eras match up. And the fact that so few people are willing to speak on it publicly tells you how much power JayZ actually has. Fear keeps people silent more effectively than NDAs ever could. Right now, JayZ's image is starting to crack in ways it never has before. The internet is asking questions that weren't acceptable to ask 5 years ago. The Diddy situation has opened doors to conversations about power and exploitation in hip-hop that were previously considered off-limits. And 50 Cent is standing in the middle of it all, saying, "I told you so." He's been sounding this alarm since 1999, and people are only now starting to listen. The difference between now and then is that the culture is finally ready to question the people at the top, to ask uncomfortable questions about how empires get built and who gets hurt along the way. Whether this leads to any real consequences for JayZ is unclear. He's too rich, too connected, and too protected to fall easily. But the conversation has shifted. The untouchable aura is fading. And once people start questioning the image, it's hard to put that genie back in the bottle. Public perception is everything. And JayZ is changing in real time. 50 Cent believes the truth always comes out eventually. He's been waiting 20 years for people to listen. And now, finally, they might be ready to hear it. The question is whether anything will actually change, or if this is just another moment that gets memory holed by the machine Jay allegedly controls. So here's what I want to know. Do you think 50 Cent has been trying to expose something real this whole time? Or is this just the longest running beef in hip-hop history? Drop your thoughts in the comments because this conversation is far from over. And if you want to stay updated on how this unfolds, hit that subscribe button. This story is only going to get more intense from here.